when you start committing to just following your purpose, I knew I loved spirituality. I knew it's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I actually once had guidance. I was sat outside my house. I was living in Leicester at the time, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I was journaling, and I just got spiritual entrepreneur. And I thought, well, that's not a thing. They don't go together. They're totally separate. And I realized, okay, this is my mission. I need to make these two things work together. And then once I committed to doing that, and I knew roughly what direction I wanted to be going in, and I was committed to making it work from a place of love and joy, rather than trying to force something which didn't really fit me, then I found opportunities started coming to me rather than me going out and looking for something, which is what I always used to do. Then the opportunities started coming into me instead. So that alignment piece is really where that ease, flow, and joy starts to happen.
Love, 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 love. Yes, preach, preach, preach. That's why we are so aligned. I was like, oh my God, we need to do a podcast together. This is everything. And just to kind of reflect on that, a couple of days ago, I was in this position where I've been working all day and I felt like I needed to grind and hustle, and I just felt really meh. I was like, I just feel really low in energy and blocked. And I was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm not aligned. I need to have fun. That is my number one priority, is to have fun, feel aligned. It's a part of my business strategy. So I was like, I'm not having enough fun. Hello. And then it all shifted and it all started to flow again. But, we are all human. And, I'm not sure if you get this, but do you get those moments where you're like being human and then you're reminded of, okay, it can be easy. Do you fall into the trap of it being hard and still?
Oh my goodness. Of course, of course, of course. And I'm really lucky where I live. I live in Poole in Dorset, which is south coast of England. So whenever I'm getting really stressed out and I'm stressy and I'm annoyed, and my husband's like, oh, for goodness sake, just go to the beach. And I'm like, okay. So I have my little Yeti coffee cup and I'll take a matcha or whatever drink down to the beach, and just walking on the coast instantly makes me feel better. And it's one of those things where sometimes I think I just don't have time for this. Like logically, it makes so much more sense for me to keep cracking on with my to-do list, but just taking that hour out to be by the sea, I'm like, and just feel grounded and centered. So of course, I mean, everyone gets that, whether you work in spirituality or not. I mean, we're all human, especially when you're ambitious and you have big dreams and clients and you've got to create content and just all of the things. You always get into that space where you fall off center or you need to get grounded again. And you could be on the most perfectly aligned path ever. And then at one point it's going to stop feeling aligned. And then you're being called to do the next thing, the next iteration of that journey towards being a spiritual teacher. So your path still will change. Even when you're completely aligned, you'll reach the end of one path and then it'll be like, okay, time to shift things and move on to the next phase.
And that's intuition, right? Trusting your intuition. So can you talk us through like intuition, the power of it, how to tap into it? Because we've all got it available to us, haven't we?
Yeah. And I love talking about this because it's such a common problem that I see. And again, one that I used to have. So the first thing is that intuition is very much in your body. So that's why we say a gut feeling. That's why we get anxiety. That's why we can have a health complaint that the doctors can never diagnose, or they say, no, there's nothing really wrong, but you still have that pain in your hip or in your stomach and you just don't know what it is. And it's because there's something there which we're not paying attention to. For example, when I talked earlier about my anxiety, that was my body and my mind saying, you're not in the right place, you're out of alignment. That's why I was feeling so stressed, because I was pushing and forcing. But once we start paying attention to what's happening in our body, then things start to make a little bit more sense. And the same with foods. We know what foods don't work for us because they make us feel physically ill. Like, for example, dairy does not do well with me. But for the first 24 years of my life, I would eat all of the dairy in the world. And I look at pictures and my stomach was so bloated, but I just never noticed. I never paid attention. So we need to pay attention to what's going on in our body. Do you feel really tense when you're about to meet a friend because they're kind of sucking the life out of you? But we can so often just keep forcing ourselves and pushing against what our body is screaming at us. So definitely paying attention to your body and what's going on there. The next thing is to pay attention to the signs. So we get internal intuition and we get external intuition, where our spirit guides might be sending us signs, our higher self will be trying to tell us things, the universe is trying to give us pointers. So these can be amazing confirmation when you are on the right path and you are following your intuition and you get the signs to say, yeah, you're doing a great job, keep going. Or you might get external signs because you're not paying attention to your intuition. And it will be, the thing that happens, that tower moment we talk about when everything comes crashing down, if you don't pay attention to the signs beforehand. So paying attention to the signs, paying attention to your body in terms of the way that most people think of intuition, which is, things that pop into your head. The only way that will happen, unless you are born just incredibly gifted, which is extremely rare, is by having a regular meditation practice or some kind of intentional practice, whether it's 5 minutes journaling, whether it's a meditation once a week. Without creating some kind of space, though, those thoughts are never going to come through. They're just not. They can't fight their way through that busy mind chatter. So it's really important to make some space for that. But also, like I said, know that intuition doesn't just happen in one way. And I was literally talking about this with a client on a call before we started filming this, about the word psychic and how it's loaded with expectation, and how, oh, well, if you're psychic, then you must know what's going to happen tomorrow. You must know who's going to be the next president. And it's the same with intuition. If you're expecting it to be so much more than it is, or expecting it to look a certain way, feel a certain way, then you're never going to connect with what it actually is. So intuition is going to be different for everyone. There's 8 different clairsenses. You can have clairsentient, feeling things, clairaudience, hearing things, clair empathy, feeling emotional things, emotions from other people. I'm gonna forget some now. There's one for taste, one for smell, and obviously clairvoyance, which is the one that everyone knows and associates with being psychic. But people have different ways of accessing their intuition. So some people might have psychic dreams and they might see visions, and that's what their intuition is for them. Some people get a ringing in their ears when something's true, which is what I get. Some people can only access their intuition by using cards, tarot cards or oracle cards or a pendulum. And these are all great tools to use, but just knowing how your intuition works for you and not expecting it to be something it's not, so you're not noticing what it actually is for you and how that information comes through to you to guide you personally.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah, I definitely got a clairsentient feeling when I went onto your Instagram. I was like, yeah, I know this woman for sure. And just what you said there around the signs and trusting. And one realization I've had this week is, people can trust the universe and trust they're supported and trust that the universe has got them. But if they're not trusting themselves to actually listen and take action on that, then there's no point. So how can people start to trust themselves and trust the signs and not just see it as a coincidence?
Yeah, of course. And this is very experiential. We believe things when we have proof. So, one way that you can do that from today is by looking back on your past. When did you have the bad gut feeling and you went with it anyway? It could be that, that frog that you kissed once who was never a prince and you got deluded thinking that he was, but you had that bad gut feeling at the beginning. What was that feeling that you had? Because when you start connecting those dots, what's happened in the past, then you know what to look out for in the future. When you have that feeling, then you know, okay, well, last time I had this feeling, I ignored it. I went with it anyway, and that was the outcome. So looking back to the past and really understanding what it felt like for you so that you can avoid it again, that's really, really important. Sorry, what was the question?
I love this. The question is like, how do you trust the signs?
How do you trust? Okay.
Yeah.
Go back in. So, and then the next thing would have to be, again, just doing an experiment with yourself. Okay, you see a sign is pointing you to go in a certain direction. Maybe you just try it with an open mind and you see, is it leading you somewhere? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Well, then you can trust it a little bit more. Trust is something that is built over time. You're probably not going to trust it straight away. We're trained in our society to be very, very cynical and untrusting in the Western world specifically. So the only way to build that trust is to get your own experience. If someone's just telling you about intuition, if someone's just telling you about these things, then it's probably not going to really sink in. You need to know it and experience it for yourself. So just do an experiment. And this is a really common thing with manifestation. They'll say, just try with something small, try an experiment. And then when you get the proof, then you can really then it can really sink in and become knowledge rather than a belief. So it's the same with intuition. Just practice following the signs, see where they lead you, connect the dots to the past. And then when you have enough experience, you're like, okay, this is it. And this is how intuition works for me.
Yes. It's the embodiment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You can know, you can read, you can listen, but if you're not embodying it, it's not going to be on that cellular level. And your energetic experience is what it really comes down to, isn't it? Because your body then picks up on the signals, and it's like we all have this body reaction. I know I certainly do. Like I have this in my sacral chakra. I'm like, I definitely know if it's a yes or if it's a no. And I always use this little trick where I'll stand up on my feet and I'll ask myself a question. And if I fall forward, it's a yes, that's true for me. And if I fall backward, it's a no. And so that's because I'm just trusting my body and the embodiment of my higher self and my being, and it never fails. And I think whenever you take the head out of the equation, it means that you're in full surrender of spirit, because the ego wants to know, but how, and wants to know every single step of the staircase. And that's often what keeps people stuck, isn't it? It's trying to figure out, how am I going to do this, like logically? I mean, the world was created from a big bang. There's babies being born every single day from, a sperm and an egg coming together. Like, it's magical, this universe we live in. And I know that you'll agree that we all have this magic within us that is there, that we just need to look inwards and give ourselves that spaciousness to actually listen to ourselves and stop listening to other people. And I know, particularly for me, the day that I stopped asking for other people's advice is when I felt really empowered. And having the tools to be able to listen to my body with my pendulum, with the, rocking backwards and forwards, it's really shifted a lot for me, being able to know that I actually fully trust myself. And how important is it, do you think, for people to lead their life with intuition? What impact would it have?
Yeah, definitely. And going back to the alignment piece, it is your intuition that keeps you in alignment. We go out of alignment when we're not listening to our intuition. So I think it's really, really important to listen to your intuition so that you can stay away from the situations which are going to drain you more than they maybe give to you. Like I used the example before of relationships. We've all had that example of whether it's a love relationship or a friendship where we got the red flags. We had the feeling there was just something off, and we went in anyway. And if we don't listen to our intuition, then we're going to keep ending up in the same situations again and again and again. And just to try and avoid those tower moments, I mean, really, if we don't listen to our intuition for so long, the universe is like, okay, someone I know calls these an angel clang, when it's like, boom, everything comes crashing down, because that is what inevitably happens. If you don't listen to your intuition about something, you'll get a few chances to do it. If you don't do it, then the universe is going to force you to listen to it. Not that that's something to, be afraid of, but again, it's something that you go through a few times. You're like, okay, I need to learn this. I need to listen. And then you just find that life is just so much easier. And it really puts you in that authority, that sovereignty, like you said, about not following other people's advice. Because you can get all the advice in the world. You can get all of the strategies and the tactics. But this is another reason why I created Spiritual Success as well, because the same tactics don't work for everyone. You need to use your intuition. If you're a coach, then that intuition is also a really powerful tool, because that is going to give you that personalized guidance for what is going to work for you. If you're a massive introvert and really empathic, then some kind of hard selling tactics are just going to feel awful for you. You're going to hate doing it. You're going to avoid it like the plague, and it's not going to be right for you. But if you realize, okay, I am this, what's my intuition telling me? Okay, it's telling me that I need to write a blog, it's telling me to focus on how I can serve. And then that will create your personalized strategy for success that will work for you, will feel good for you, and will be easiest for you as well.